Move this over here. What's up, Brandon?
What's going on, man?
Not
Had the
much.
flu.
You did?
I did.
That's still
Yeah.
around?
It's still around. Yeah.
Wow. That's a rare one. All right. You're all better, though? You sound better.
Yeah, I ended up getting antibiotics and stuff because I was feeling better and then got worse. Finally feeling much closer to myself
Yeah.
now, for sure.
You sound like yourself, so that's good. Good afternoon, everybody. We are the Reboot. We're here today talking about lead generation and marketing. We try to touch base on different topics for small businesses, and we always tend to steer on the technical side of things just because of the nature of our business. But we like to kind of pepper in some, general business topics for discussion, and see what kind of works for us. Before we get into it, I am Brian Bracci. I'm with B&L PC Solutions, and I'm joined here by my good friend Brandon from.
Yeah, Brandon Bowers from Eisenramper Managed Technology Services.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
I like the little
Yeah,
abbreviation, though. That works.
that's why I always abbreviate. Oh, MTS, MTS, because every time we pick up the phone, it's like, oh my God, am I going to
Yeah.
say this? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're we are both in the IT space, managed service space, but the commonality between businesses is marketing at some level. We are not we don't identify as marketing experts, but we're in a marketing group, and we meet weekly and then in person quarterly, and we go through a bunch of different things that are working for some of us. It may not be working for other people. What we've learned is it depends on, there's a couple of different things that can affect your marketing results. It can be the vertical that you're marketing to, and the time of year that you're marketing to that vertical. It could be a geographical location, and something that works for you may not work. We're based out of New York, and there's something that Brandon's working on down in Florida. Maybe he gets a little more traction during hurricane season with some marketing stuff that may not work in the on the West Coast for some people. So we have different things that we do, and we do have some measurable results. So I think it's important, and to kind of share that and see, kind of put some ideas out there on what you could possibly be doing in your own business. And the goal is to get more leads, right? So Brendan, what do
Yeah.
you get?
Well, I want to say something because for business owners or anybody who's in a upper management or some sort of area where like your ultimate destiny revolves around that business growing. So if you're a sales guy, whatever else, I would almost argue you are in marketing, because at the end of the day, like marketing is gonna most people call it a funnel, right? Marketing is gonna feed the funnel and get people into the funnel so that your sales team can close. And maybe depending on the business size, like you could be the marketing person, you could be the salesperson, you could be the person delivering the service as well. But I think we're all in marketing at the end of the day, whether we have a marketing title or not. Like it's just something that every business owner needs at least to have some awareness around, and making sure they're putting some focus and effort behind it, especially if they want to grow, and especially around this time, like what's going on with the economy and everybody's worried, and inflation, like you're getting pounded with it all the time on all of these like macro level issues going on in the world. And like for me, it's just like, all right, I want to focus on growing. Like I can't control that stuff, so let me focus on what I can control. And I think thinking about yourself as a marketer, like you should do that as any business owner should be thinking that way.
Yeah, I agree. We even go as far as telling our techs to pitch for referrals, and something as simple as that can reach. They may know people, they may be out with friends, and just that is a sort of marketing. We have campaigns. We have a referral campaign that we run that seeks referrals, and we award or reward our customers, staff with compensation for getting us that lead if it's qualified.
Let's talk about like, let's dig into some of those different, I call them oil wells because
Yeah.
that's like what I've been trained or heard.
Mhm.
But so let's talk about those after for a second and go back to what you first mentioned, which is like having a clear target market. Like you said, vertical, but
Mhm.
clear target market, it could be a certain size, geographic region, something else like that, because all of your messaging will really be dependent on that vertical. If you're focusing on accounting firms, are your customers like, are you going to be doing all your marketing efforts between January and April, like as your heavy targeted times? Probably not, because they're going to be in tax season and they're going to see your stuff come across their desk or the emails or the phone calls, and they're going to be like, I'm doing taxes or audit work right now. Like, call me in a few months, call me after April.
And
Don't
that's
talk to me
to
right
be
now.
honest with you, that was one of the mistakes that we made, knowing, I went into that season knowing that was not a great time for that. But my spin on it was, you know what, maybe I'll find an accounting firm that can't handle that, like their IT is not working right now. And this lands on their desk and they say, you know what, I'm annoyed right now. Let me call this guy. So that was the kind of approach I took with that, just to see if it worked.
But that's
It
still a
didn't.
really good example because it hits home the fact that, okay, who am I marketing to? Do I know my audience? Have I tailored the message? And you put some thought around it, right? Okay, an accounting firm, if they're having issues at this time, like this is the most critical time. So this is going
Yep.
to be the time that if they're upset with somebody, they're probably going to be like, okay, just get in here and fix this right
Mhm.
now. Like,
Mhm.
we can't have downtime right now.
So I will
Um,
say, along those lines, I'm in conversation right now with a firm that we marketed to post busy season, and they called us back. They're with their current provider for 15 years, and the reason they called us was because we did a campaign, a poker chip campaign. They called us and said, you know what, we were down during our busiest season, and their solution was to, I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but they were not happy with what happened during their busy season, and they're ready to go. So, again, I was fortunate enough to potentially get something out of that, but it works.
yeah, and I think this goes to the message that like you just need to keep doing this stuff. Like, you can't pick up and say, hey, I'm going to do mailings this month, and next month I'm going to do digital, and next month I'm going to do something else, and not stay in front of those same people. I don't know what the average is, but from, if I go back, I think it was like 8 to 12 touches you have to touch a customer or prospect for them
Prospect,
to
yeah,
actually reach back out is the
yeah.
average. I can't remember the exact number, but it's not one, that's for sure. So you just need to stay in front of them. um, I think it was, I wouldn't, it was either in a book from Jack Daly. Have you read any of his stuff?
Oh yeah,
Jack
yeah.
Daly's like this big sales guru, and he's
Love him. Yeah,
super entertaining to
yeah.
watch, right? Because he's just out there. And I think Robin Robbins has spoken about this too before, but there's like, I think it's called the pain graph or something like that, right? And so you have a graph and your customers like right here. There's a border up at the top where, over time in a relationship with a vendor, maybe they start, there's no pain, but then they have little issues, right? And as you get up in that graph, if you're the one that is constantly marketing to that customer and they finally get to that point where they just like they've had enough, or they're getting to the point where like they're just upset, like you want to be that person that's in front of them. And so that's why you need those additional touch points or even different routes, right? Because some people are checking their emails. Some people like just ignore and delete that stuff, or maybe it doesn't even get through the email because of spam. And so that's why a mailer is better for them. Or some people may not even be in their office, so they don't get mailers. So digital or something else is better for them, or maybe a phone call.
Right.
Um, yeah, multiple touch points, I think is critical, and making sure you have like that clear message on your target.
Well, yeah. So getting back to verticals, and again, it doesn't matter. You could be an accounting firm that specializes in contractors, right? It's still, if you have to know, what put your message out there. So you have to have good branding, good messaging, and be consistent, right? So I could use the same marketing style for different verticals, right? I can do the same thing for CPAs, and we're also, we do very well with healthcare and HIPAA compliance. So there's different what you market to that that vertical, but you also have to have that synergy on your website so that everything coincides and flows nicely, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's obviously we did a session on pages that you must have on your website, right? But if you want to get into simple SEO, right? SEO is something, and on the digital side, you have SEO, you have AdWords, you have you know whatever else, pay per click, different methods, right? Right now, we're only doing SEO, and we're getting, I mean, great traction with that. And why is that? So now that kind of gets into getting these qualified leads. How do you, so not only you want to get them to your site, what's the next step? You need them to call you, a convert, a call to action, right? You need something to happen. So you could have great SEO and a bad website or bad messaging, and nothing's going to happen. You're going to say this isn't working.
There's nothing worse than going to a site, you found a product that you want, and you can't find a damn phone number to order it, or an easy button to click to get contact information or to get a call back or something. Like, yeah, you got to make it easy for conversion is what they call it, right? If they can't get to your page and within, what is it, how many seconds the average that
Right?
somebody
Yeah,
stays on your site,
yeah.
if they can't get there within less than a minute at least, then like you got a problem to solve.
Right.
Most definitely. But okay, so website is one piece of it, which I would call digital, and you want to have all these different oil wells going, right? I would say let's focus on that, especially since we don't have a ton of time left. But so you mentioned referrals. I mean, I feel like referrals are great if you can find a way to foster those, because from a sales perspective, it's easy to gain trust. Someone else is there, it's probably their friend, and they said, hey, I know this guy Brandon, he's a great guy, or I know this guy Brian, he's a great guy, he's going to do it right, I trust him, I've been working with him. And so immediately, like, you're up here, now your close potential is much higher, right? It's an easier sell. What have you done to try and foster? Well, you mentioned that you give some incentives to some of your guys. Are you doing anything else to foster referrals?
Not specifically. We just redid the referral campaign itself. So we're actually in the process now of we try to do that quarterly, and so there's a couple of different pieces to that. So um, we have different pieces on the back, so probably similar to what you have. We ask our customers for a couple of things, right? So when I'm in person with them, I kind of go on that, if you know anybody, referral type pitch, right? That's in person. We also do it. We send out the campaign for that, but I'm also asking clients for reviews as well, right? So I want them to write a review about us so we can build our reputation and our digital presence with Google My Business and those results. So we're really just focusing now. So what we're working on now is, I saw a session yesterday, and I got a great idea from that. Is when you're doing your referral campaigns, have your entire staff on the bottom, a big blob about referrals, so that every message that they're sending out, it's being seen. And again, my guys are corresponding with clients all day long. So we'll see what happens with that. But from what I've heard, that there's some different. Not only is it the emails, it's doing the email signatures. It's and any type of follow up that you can do. But we're it's kind of new to us. We're kind of green in that area. So this go around, we have a little more content to work with. So be interesting to see the results. What about you?
Just for others to hear. So, we've sent out quite a few different referral campaigns, and like to explain what that is. Campaign would be like, hey, we put together some sort of offer. We were sending out letters or calls and stuff like that, and we were trying to gamify it ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest success that I sent out in the past was a free TV. I don't know, it was simple, but we ended up getting, I don't know, like 4 or 5 leads from that were pretty decent qualified leads. But I remember through our group that there was another company in another state that was giving away a Tesla. And what they did, and what they did was, depending on the number of computers the prospect had or phones, they would get a certain number of tickets, and then they did a drawing. And I remember reading some posts because people are like, "Oh, you're crazy. You're going to give that away." But I mean, if the Tesla costs 40 grand, 50 grand, or whatever at the time, this was a few years ago now. You probably can't get one off the lot now for less
Well,
than like
right,
75 or
right.
something. Who
And it was a
knows?
Model 3 probably. It wasn't the,
Yeah. But they ended up making like over $100,000 in revenue off of that
people wanted
referral
that.
campaign.
Right. They
Yeah,
wanted it.
and
Yeah.
so that this is something else that I find a lot of people are sort of short-sighted when they think of marketing because they're like, well, you spent $2,500 to get this close,
Right.
but if it's $25 you spent, but you're talking about like monthly recurring revenue or something that is not just a one and done type of opportunity,
Sure.
that starts stacking up, right? And so then the more marketing you throw at it, really the better, because like I want to spend more money because then all of a sudden my MRR is exponentially paying me back
Exactly.
for all of that effort put in.
Yeah. So ours is based it's for every qualified referral that we get that is, and there's criteria there. It has to be, I think, 10 users, and
Yeah.
they have to have a meeting with myself, and so they get 25 or $50 just for that referral, and then they get entered into, I think it's twice a year, a $500 Amazon gift card, is
Okay.
the top prize. So didn't get any traction from that. So, but again, it was just, it has to be like you're saying. You have to keep touching and putting it out there, and
Yeah.
refine the process. We, like I said, we're not marketing experts. Just because something is working this month does not mean it's going to work next month, next quarter, next year. It's all, there's a lot of variables there, but be persistent in your messaging and in your marketing. And we send out weekly emails to everybody, and it could be a tip, a security tip, or it could be related to your business. Just have to keep putting it out there, and no one's,
Yeah.
other than I guess bad, if you have a dirty list, of prospects, but we're opting everybody in, and they're engaging. There's some engagement there. We're not getting people that are signing off, and it's ongoing. It's organic, and it has to keep. You have to, like Brandon said earlier, you have to keep putting these touches out there.
And so like you have all these different things. So you're doing SEO, you got some AdWords going, you're mailing, referral campaigns and things like that. Um, I find it to be really wild. And I think you had a story that you shared something recently on one of our calls that I think that you should mention. But just on like, it's not instant gratification either. Like you have all these touch points going, and then all of a sudden, like you start getting traction in different areas. Like you've touched somebody now 10, 15 times, and then
Mhm.
they opt in. I had a prospect that they were getting our newsletter. We were sending them weekly emails about security tips and things going on, similar to you. After about a year, I think, I don't know, we invested between all that marketing, maybe $500 to $1,000 between mailers and all kinds of other stuff. Um, they reached out to us on a random security tip email that like just hit home at the time that they were experiencing something, like, hey, call me. And it was like the
Right.
fastest close.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know, like it's been plenty of times where somebody says, hey, I got this thing a long time ago from you and we're just having an issue now and
Yeah.
we think we should talk. It's not usually like, hey, we just mailed it out and then they're ready to go
Yeah.
day one.
Yeah.
I don't. You told me something that you sent something a year ago or something like that, and then you got a call, right?
Well, so yeah, I had someone that we actually we were at the proposal stage. So
Oh, okay.
you think everything's good, and so we had the initial meeting. We gave the proposal, and and there's nothing worse than no action after that process, right? So it's not, I'd rather them come back and say it was relative to price, or it was this, or we found somebody else. There's just
Yeah,
radio silence for whatever. Get an email the other day, last week, that we want to move forward with the proposal. I'm like, what? It's
that's
like,
painful
okay,
too. I, I
great.
I feel like whenever a vendor is after me or I'm working with somebody, I at least tell them like, hey, you know what? It's just not a good time right now. Maybe in
Of
three
course.
months, or hey, pricing doesn't work, or whatever. Like my issue is when you just get that radio silence. It's
Yeah.
as a salesperson, like it's because you're trying to follow up and you
Yeah.
think like you had great conversation and things were going right, and you can help them as well. Like you feel like you can bring value, and then it's just zero, and you
Zero.
can't get anything.
It's
Yeah.
and I think the majority of my meetings that I have are engaged by the prospect. So it's someone that was through SEO or responded to something that we sent. And it's just so there's a need here. You search for something, you found it, we talked, and it's been. I mean, I've had someone that right away we go right into that proposal phase, and I don't know if you watch Derek yesterday from our group.
No.
He was on with Jeff. It was a great. You should watch it. I'm sure it was recorded, but he's like, you know what? As soon as I get them, I overnight, or shock and awe. He's like, I have a proposal with them, and I want them to sign within that week. Like just pretty much Chris Voss, get them to commit. That's right. Those are my issues. Yes, 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 and then get that signature. And his close rate is like 40-something%, which
But
is
so just to break down everything you mentioned, this goes back to process.
sales
So
process. Oh yeah, yeah.
it's also not enough to just be doing the marketing. Like you got to be a professional about the entire thing. So, hey, you got the lead in the funnel now. What are we going to do next? And what are we going to do quickly? Because I would say in most industries, like when somebody's looking for something, like they want it and they want it now. They don't want to wait till next week or next month, or they're not planning on something a year out. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Like that does happen on occasion, but most typically, like they want it quickly. And so, like I'll say the dating phase, which is like you getting the proposal together and the first time you meet and everything, like you're kind of proving how quality of a company you are from that first piece of communication to what's the next step. And the fact that, hey, you got a lead that came in, you have a phone call tomorrow, they already have a box from you with more information. Like that's just a differentiator that you
It
don't
is.
see out there typically. And people don't realize like there's a lot of work
Oh yeah,
involved in
yeah.
that. And making sure that you have a process like that is so extremely important. I so Mike, I feel like my close rate when we started implementing more of that process
Process.
driven, I'll just call it process,
Yeah.
went up significantly. And by us sending more information before we even had a meeting, a lot of times it answered questions that just made it easier when we were
Yep.
having a conversation at the proposal phase. So they were
Yep.
like, oh yeah, I read that in there. And oh, I saw you had a money back guarantee or this or that, or
Mhm.
whatever your SLAs are. Like make it easy for them and give them what they need right off the bat. And if you can answer objections even before they come up, like that's perfect.
Yeah, and we tell one of the things that you probably send too is we tell them when you're evaluating other IT companies, look for this, look for these things, and make sure that they're part of their proposal, or if you're using them now, make sure that they're doing that now. And some of the negatives that because everything has a negative side, right? So if we send our shock and awe box, which is basically a branded box with materials in it and just some tchotchke things, and then I've actually had someone call me back and say, we can't afford you, like just based on that. And it was like, well, no, that's something, like, no, this is good stuff. This is something that, I didn't say that to them, but it's like, well, we didn't even get to that point. Let me come in, tomorrow, whatever. And, but
But you
but
know
you
what?
want that though.
Honestly, that's okay too, right? Not
Absolutely.
everybody's for everybody, and
Absolutely.
that those initial meetings are to figure out if you're both a good fit.
Yep. And
Um,
and one of the last things though I'll say is that our marketing is, again, so we talk about different times a year, different messaging. We also in our business we have the if you want to call it luxury, but maybe 1 month I'm going to market a specific service, VoIP, like so I can now I can potentially hit someone that didn't care about their computers or they like their IT provider, but I'm offering free phones here and 50% off their current bill. That's worth the phone call for me, you know.
yeah, and even thinking about what's going on in the world at the time, right?
Yep.
So obviously we're in IT, so it's easy for us right now because of all the cyber things going on with the war and
Yep.
ransomware going on all the time, and so like that messaging is easy, but if you can think of ways on like, hey, what's going on in the news is something related to your industry that you can educate at the same time or make yourself really pertinent with what's happening in the world. I mean, all the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The marketing message. I mean, you have to be ready to, I think, be on a whim, be able to change it and pivot and get your messaging out there and like you're saying, topical and current events, whatever. Depends on your business, but everything, you can't just do, I get these faxes all the time for roofing and buying used cars, right? It's like
Who's still sending faxes, man? This is crazy.
I get them, twice a week. I'm getting something, right? But you can rest assured if I need a roof in the building, you know what, I'm going to that and I'm going to call that person. I don't own the building, so it's not going to be me anyway. But it's just the point though is that's still that still goes on. It's that's their method of they blast out these faxes. So
so we're kind of running out of runway here. I want to recap a couple of things.
Yep.
Number one, have a clear target market, right? Know your audience. Maybe it's a vertical. We didn't talk about personas, but maybe even creating a persona of who is your ideal target market person that you're speaking to. Customize the messaging, multiple oil wells, referrals, SEO, AdWords, website focus around conversion, having a clear process. Once you do get a lead, what you're going to do with it next.
Right.
Yeah. And also having all those touch points, right? Not stopping after one and making sure that it's a multitude of touch points in front of each prospect, because they're not necessarily going to convert or raise their hand after just one.
Right.
Is there anything else you can think of? I think we did a lot of stuff in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. I think it was a good session. I think we kind of, again, it's different for your business, but the messaging is the same, right? It's the same, keep the same structure, the consistency, and it's not expensive, right, Brandon? I mean, there's things obviously that cost money, right? But like anything else, you're going to put a few dollars into it, and your return is a measurable return that Listen, if you spend $500 a month on Google and you're getting back, $4,000 a month in revenue, you know what? You may up that to $750 next month, and then you're getting another. So it's based on the return, and you're not going to know until you actually start small, get in there, and reap the results. I don't know. I mean, it's been we've had months where there's nothing, right? You've been through that.
Oh yeah.
But it's you got to keep doing it.
Yeah, you got to spend money to make money, man.
That's it. All right. Well, thanks, Brandon.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Good session.
We'll see you next week.
Next week.
All right.